Welcome to ET Cases. We have with us Mr. Unmesh, who happens to be a classmate, very close buddy of MANJUNATH, our protagonist of this case study. And he also happens to be a gentleman who has part-funded the movie that was made on MANJUNATH's life. And we are trying to get from him his association and what does the legacy of MANJUNATH meant to him personally, and also what he has to say for the rest of the world in terms of the learning that we can have from MANJUNATH's life story. Welcome to ET Cases, Unmesh.
Thank you.
And let's go through. I think this association goes back almost about 10 years ago while you were with MANJUNATH in IIM LUCKNOW days, those 2-year interest years. So how did you come across the gentleman over these 2 years' time?
Yeah, that was actually 13 years ago now.
Right.
MANJUNATH came across as someone who was extremely warm. He was in a few groups with me, part of normal business school studies. What I found was two very interesting things. One, apart from being very people-friendly, so as to speak, he had a very different perspective when you spoke to him about any topic. Just like this case study, we would have other case studies as well. And I remember specifically there was a case where it was about technology transfer, change in technology by a company. And we were all talking about cost and marketing and things like that. And his first reaction was, how are people going to react to this? This is something which was consistent. It would come across in various forms across the 2 years that I studied with him. The other thing which I noticed was that he was extremely honest. And that to the extent where we, to a large extent, thought that he was naive, which is a word that has been used many times about him. And there again, there was we have these group discussions in summer placement. He was sitting in one of those, and the topic of the discussion was engineers doing an MBA is a waste of national resources.
Right.
I don't know why they came up with that, but that was the topic of discussion, and everyone enjoyed talking about it, including myself, and became a fish market, so as to speak. But MANJUNATH did not speak through the GT.
Right.
At the end, I think the moderator took pity on him and said, you can summarize what happened. So he made a summary, then he said, do you want to add a line? And MANJUNATH said, I'm an engineer, and I am an MBA, and you have made me think, but I don't know the answer to the question. I thought it was not the right thing to say, because that does not increase your chances of getting that job. You are supposed to be saying what will help you cross the line into the interview. But he was not like that. He did not care about consequences, so as to speak, which we realized later in life as well. But he was more interested in speaking the truth, and he spoke from his heart. If that is what he believed, he would say it. And I think this is something, these are two things which were consistent.
And then, what this also comes across to us is that was there any instance where either you or your classmates or your batchmates gave back this feedback to him? I think you're living out of the world. I mean, this is not the kind of life that you want to be leading once you're out of the campus. So was there any feedback, or was people having some sort of pity on him? So so either it has to be in a continuum of either pity or inspiration. So I don't know what it meant to all of you.
Inspiration, I think, was not there. Pity, maybe not. Maybe that's an extreme word.
Right.
But definitely, very few guys were inspired. And he was a very lovable. He was a nice, warm, friendly guy. People liked him. Feedback was given to him. In fact, very close to placement season, there was an instance where he had, in the middle of the night, some 2 a.m., he and another friend of mine, and us, 3 of us were sitting in a room, chatting, and he said, I want to do IAS after MBA. I was like, why are you wasting your time?
Right.
And he said, I will serve the nation. And now...
That's during 4th semester.
Yeah, that was 4th or 5th semester. This was probably, 3 months away. And he had this epiphany that he wanted to serve the nation. And my reaction was, look, you're an idiot. No, serious, these words, you're an idiot. You get into IAS, they not only will you not serve the nation, but you will become corrupt like them. So don't do it. And he and the other friend of mine, they kept insisting that if not that, then the second best thing was to go and work for a public sector company. which again was a completely alien concept to me, because we all went to business school because we wanted to work for a bank or investment banks and consulting firms. And his reaction was that if I work for a public sector bank or a public sector oil company, then somehow I will be serving the nation. Right. Because that's a national resource, unlike a private resource, which I would. So he was told, he knew that, but he was not someone who would give up on his values because we told him to do it.
Right. And the other thing is that when you combine this, what he did with his family background, right? I think his family was, I think if I'm right, is almost depending on him to take care of where his father would have left him in terms of economics. So was there any disconnect from the point of view of economics of the family and what he was willing to do?
No, absolutely. For us, one of the big, when the news hit us that he had passed away, my first reaction was, what will happen
to the family?
Because his, I don't know the exact numbers, but his father his father was the only working member of the family. He had two siblings, one younger brother and one younger sister, unmarried. Brother was studying, mother was a housewife, father used to earn 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 rupees a month. He was almost singularly responsible for 60-70% of the earnings of the family, and this was also, he had no savings because this was maybe less than 24 months after he had joined IOC when this had happened. The responsibilities on him were immense, and he realized that, most importantly, because we talked about it when he was on campus. But that did not stop him.
Right.
From a pure economic or a pure practical perspective, it made absolutely no sense to put your life at risk.
Right.
I would say not even put your life at risk in terms of driving fast and not wearing a helmet. And this was something which he knew would happen, and yet he went ahead and so-called stood by what he believed in.
In this 24 months, that after he came out of the campus, he was working for. So did he come in contact with any one of you and shared his feeling or maybe his experience of what he was not able to get things done and the kind of system that he saw and the kind of thing that he wanted to do eventually? Was there any such dialogue with any of your batchmates or maybe with you or anyone for that matter?
No, not so much with me. In fact, the only time he visited Mumbai and came over to my house, we didn't talk about this. He hinted at how he was not very happy, but I think it was more because he was away from home, apart from anything else. So I had no clue. But there were friends who were closer to him, who now in hindsight we know that there was some kind of discussion around what he's facing, and also with his family.
Okay.
Where he had talked about the issues that he was facing in terms of him not only feeling like he was distant from home, but more importantly his inherent conflict in him wanting to practically know that he has to remain quiet or not oppose or maybe even leave and run away, versus him actually taking a stand on adulteration.
How did the family took up? I'm sure his mother, maybe his father. I think they would have heard or noticed him completely disturbed, and they would have tried to, maybe intervene in some way or the other. So, was there any such intervention from his family?
See, all I can say is that I have not spoken to them directly. Sure. But from what I understand is that they had explained to him many times. In fact, the threat was obvious because his mother had actually, who was a housewife from Kolar, had actually for the first time left her husband alone and come to stay with Manjunath in UP. She could barely speak Hindi.
Right.
And because she understood that he is going through some kind of inside conflict. There was a conflict inside him, and maybe try to protect him, stabilize him. I don't know, but it was a big step. He was definitely told by friends, family, whoever he had discussed with, that the most practical thing and the sensible thing to do is to walk away.
Right.
And there was no dearth of jobs. He was an IIM MBA. He would have been working in Bangalore, an hour away from home, very easily. But he just refused, decided to not step away from an issue.
And what does this legacy mean? I think all of you, your batchmates, and along with, of course, Sandeep, you wanted to, very, graciously and also very, very inspiringly you carry forward in terms of making a movie or being a part of it, things like that. Before we come to the making of the movie part of it, so what does this legacy mean? And I think when you go back to IIM Lucknow after you graduate, so does institution look at him, or any portals that are part of the institution look up to him? Yeah, somebody like Manjunath. So the legacy of Manjunath.
See, I don't know how many people follow him. That I don't know.
Sure.
But what I do know is that see, we've had in our campus we've had lots of CEOs and entrepreneurs and millionaires and billionaires and people who made it abroad and in India. But I think definitely Manjunath stands out as someone who is remembered and missed the most, even by people who don't know him or did not know him. Now, whether that forms into action or not is a completely different issue. But the realization that he is great and should be followed is there. Action is a separate issue.
That the institution own. That's
yeah, and undoubtedly. I think the institution also set of people, right?
Okay.
And I think whether it's professors, alumni network, the current students, or even the management, definitely there is a sense of ownership that this is someone who was a product of our batch,
right.
Of our institute. So that realization is there. I don't think any one of us can, I could be the CEO of the biggest bank in the world and yet not achieve what he has been able to achieve from that perspective.
And so I think one of the incidents that you were sharing earlier is that when you went back to the campus around maybe towards the end of 2004, 2005, beginning, the mess guy also was talking about, are you belong to this batch?
Yeah.
So what was it like?
No, most important is that was even before he had died.
Okay,
so
yeah,
it's not even an issue about his legacy.
Exactly.
In fact, the only time my father met him, he remembers him talking to a coolie at Lucknow station because we were all on our way back.
Right.
And he had pointed out specifically to me, you look how he deals with that guy. The biggest impact that Manjunath had, and this again I'm saying was, not now in hindsight after he has died, but when I went back to campus, probably 18 months after we had come out of business school, for some reason, and I was walking around and I recognized one of the workers from the mess, and he came to me and started talking to me, and they see students come and go, so they don't know who you are. Exactly. They can recognize you, and he came and said, oh, so it's good you came back and all that, and then he said, which batch are you from? And I said, I'm from IIM Lucknow batch of 2003. And he said, oh, you're from Manjunath's batch. He did not name the topper of the batch or the guy who got the best job or the one who is living in London. He said Manjunath, because he remembered that Manjunath was nice to him.
That's a reference point for him.
Yeah, the reference point for him was the person, not
so
his
what
achievement.
could have been the reference point? Why a guy like a guy who's working in mess is able to remember Manjunath, and why not other people in the batch?
See, I think we were all nice to people in general,
right.
including myself, but he could connect.
Right.
He would be having conversations with them about their lives.
So is it like he has that empathy with people, he's able to connect?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The big word would be humanism here, but
right.
most importantly, he could, he genuinely cared, and that would come across. Because your normal question when you walk in, to office and speak to a guard today is, how are you? And then you forget really what he's saying. It's a courtesy. For him, it was not a courtesy. He would ask the second question.
Right.
And, he would remember people by name. His treatment of people, whether he was a peer or a professor or the person at the mess, was exactly the same. And, that more than anything else is remembered by everyone.
Right.
Not only that, even in our batchmates, you ask them how he made you feel, and they would all have a positive association.
So how was this academically? I mean, how do you rate him in a class in terms of percentage? Maybe 1.55 or top 10%?
No, he was definitely from a pure academic, marks perspective, he was not up there.
Okay.
Possibly even to some extent he was scraping through. Let me put it this way.
Fair enough.
But he came through.
Right.
More importantly, I think was, the way sometimes we used to think, he would speak in class, right. And you would remember. I remember one incident, I was not there, but someone told me this. We were sitting in class and someone said, "What is a brand?" And people said all kinds of things they had read in books. And this guy said, "Brand is a mother. I will never leave my mother, and that is the brand association." I was like, "What nonsense is this?" Right? But you look him in the face, and he was serious.
Absolutely.
Because he had a different way of thinking about things. Now, you may or may not agree with him, but you would remember what he had to say. Because he would have a completely different perspective on things, and more from a human angle. How would people,
And like you rightly said, sometime back, it's consistently that's what you observed in 2 years' time.
No, yeah, without any gap in this.
Right.
I actually don't even remember seeing him angry about it, but that's a different issue.
Right.
But in general, his questions used to be human based, always.
Right. So let's come back to the second part of this, and that is, I think, you. So how did this movie thing happen, and then what motivated? I think it almost took close to about maybe 6 to 8 years time by the time the conceptualization to the screening part of it. So what made you stuck with this whole idea and then try to fund it and then see that its movies out and then it's become popular now?
See, the event happened in late 2005, November, and the case was fought and finished in record time and in less than 2 years, almost 18-20 months. Post that, there was so a lot of our batchmates had put in the effort of going and sitting through the hearings and helping out the lawyers and all that. I was not part of that. Because at that time, very few people could actually had the guts to leave their jobs when they are 25, 26 years old and then go and kind of dedicate full time to this. But people in our batch did it. Post that, there was a discussion that this is not complete. What has happened is not finished.
It's just in the courts, that's it.
Yeah, so the fact that the perpetrators are getting justice is not real justice. Justice is when people will know about this and hopefully understand that Manjunath was also there. We didn't want it to die. So the initial thought was to make a documentary on this, which later was an idea which we did not like so much because we thought, who watches documentaries really? You walk into a movie theater just when the movie is starting, you forget that there is a 5-minute documentary.
Right.
So that is when the concept of making a movie out of this came out. Now, initially, I was a little less involved in this. Some of our other batchmates had started to push through where they were having... for me, it felt like a lost cause after talking to 2 or 3 people. Let me put it this way.
In the beginning itself.
In the beginning itself, it looked like nothing will happen because this is not the time of Anna Hazare movement. This is 2007, 2008, when there was no corruption was not viewed as a real problem.
Right.
It was something that happened in India, and someone died for corruption was not considered to be a big deal. Actually, I don't think it is even now, but that's a different thing. At that time, nobody thought.
And that was just a student.
Yeah, he was just a student. So there was some student who tried to speak the truth and died, right? And there were statements made by fairly prominent guys, and I won't name anyone, but saying nobody watches biopics and this is not a story we want to talk about. And there was a lot of disappointment. But then somehow, actually, it turned around and Sandeep Verma, the eventual director of the movie, approached and said that I want to do something. Now, he didn't know Manjunath, and he was not from IIM Lucknow either.
Yeah.
So there was, for him, the connect was the concept and the story. And he said that I understand you guys are thinking of making a movie out of it. I want to do it. Our budget was not even enough to make 1/10 of the cost of the movie, but it was there something. And he said he put in his personal resources, put his house on mortgage, sold off stuff. Then I would say tried to do as many things as possible. Finally got NFDC to part fund the movie and started the movie. There were some times when there were issues with permissions, and then there was a cost issue, and then artist availability and all these things. Eventually, the movie was made. The product was almost finished. And
how long did it take in this entire process? I think it must have been quite grueling and demanding for Sandeep as well as maybe all of you are looking forward to the product.
See, in terms of time, it was not taking too much of ours. It was really Sandeep's baby.
Right.
He spent 4 years doing just this and nothing else. And he had a full-fledged business of his ad agency as well, which obviously he was taking time away from. It took him, I think, 4 years to 3.5, 4 years to finish the product, including research and finally the actual production of the movie. Then there was the whole issue about releasing the movie, which the trade is fairly concentrated in the hands of few studios. So you had to go through that route, or you then won't get a release at all, or you get a release which is so small that nobody notices. So, but thankfully that is when Viacom stepped in and bought the rights to, not bought, but took the rights to distribute the movie. And they are the ones who actually then eventually from November 2013 to then May 2014 when the release happened, they were the ones who actually worked with us to do it. And that is when actually our involvement increased again, because apart from...
You could see the manifestation of what you thought.
Yeah, because we could see that all that research has gone into something. We knew things are going on. Sandeep was very diligent in sending us pictures of what was going on. We knew the product is there. But
we saw the physicality.
When we saw that it was there, then the batch came together again. And that is when I thought that the most amount of time and effort was spent. There were 4 or 5 core members of this team, one in Delhi, one in Bangalore, and 3 of us in Mumbai, who came together, brought the batch together. So we did these alumni meetings in Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi, Singapore, Hong Kong, London. Singapore, Hong Kong, I was personally present, Mumbai obviously, and we got everyone together and told them that look, we need to also focus on promotion. Viacom will do its thing, but we will do it as well. And that is where the whole concept came. We thought we'll raise 3 lakh rupees and show it to a few NGO kids, because we thought that people who cannot afford to watch this movie should be able to see the movie. That was one concept. The other was we'll try and do an online marketing parallelly from whatever is going on. But the reaction was just tremendous. So between our batch and then our senior batches, we got so much interest that we had to actually set up a crowdfunding, through a crowdfunding site. We set up our own site where we got all the funds in. So what we ended up doing was showing the movie free of cost, kind of a day out for 2,500 children from NGOs, which was completely funded by the alumni. So because we wanted them to see. Right. We spoke at various seminars where we went and discussed this, newspaper articles. Apart from that, we ran contests online. There was an online marketing campaign. Then we had these slogan prizes. We had an app for Manjunath, Facebook page, and all those regular things. Yeah, so the point was, let's try and spread the word as much as possible.
Right. So at that effect, when you look back on this, very tumultuous journey of making a movie and all that, do you think the legacy of Manjunath is going to be very immortalized? Maybe not just a movie, but I think maybe the kind of the message that movie must have given to the people.
I hope so. I think so far we have not reached the numbers that we want to get to. But the movie was made assuming that it does not have a short shelf life. It's something which lives for a very, very long period of time, especially when it gets released on TV as well. I think we won't stop till the time everyone in India has at least either seen the movie or at least put on their phones and put on Google who was Manjunath and read 3 lines about him. Okay, this was a guy who was there, and this is what he wanted to do. That's our aim. The movie is one of the many ways of telling that story. Hopefully there will be a book someday, and I don't know, but something. So we'll continue this till the time it goes on. I think we are far short of the goal at this point in time, but we at least made a very big start.
So what that goal can be? How do you define that goal?
I don't know. We don't have an answer to that. So the ways we are thinking about it is that, see, the aim is for everyone to know this story. Now when we meet everyone, how do we reach out to people? A movie is one way, which can be the most powerful. Books are others. Hopefully someday there will be case studies. There will be a textbook chapter somewhere. Hopefully the movie will eventually become even more popular. It's getting tax-free status in Delhi, for example. Maybe it gets re-released, or on television people start watching it and buying DVDs, or we are able to distribute. So the aim is that we can show free movies to a certain number of people, but eventually
they have to get internalized.
It has to get internalized, and that's our goal.
So going back to the business school part of it, so how do you think the business management graduates across the country, definitely IIMs as well, how do you expect them to remember Manjunath, the legacy of Manjunath? is it a part of you restricted to course, or is it that you then must syllabi that is centered around the bigger thing like maybe personality, values, ethics, morality, what do you call it? So how do you want the business school graduates to imbibe the culture, the legacy of Manjunath, so that they really mean it?
See, the inclusion in a course can work both ways.
Right.
I remember,
it can limit, right?
It can limit things, and the other is what happens is that sometimes chapters in courses like leadership and ethics can sometimes be so contrived that actually they don't make sense anymore.
But because there's one, for example, just imagine for a moment, if it is being taught in IIMs, any of the IIMs, because do you think they can connect better with this? Because the age group is similar, and they are also going to be going out, if not that year, maybe next year they're going to go out. So they're the kind of the fairy tale world or the idealistic world, whatever we call it. So therefore, they might say that no, boss, it doesn't work that way. So let's keep our feet on the ground zero. So, but at the end of the day, but still, you want to send a message saying that no, not at the cost of sacrificing the value system. Only thing is we need to tweak it. So that kind of message.
Yeah. See, there are two things. One is that there has to be a discussion around it.
Right.
Now that can be in the form of a case study or an interactive session, or just showing the movie and then discussing it. That could be one. More importantly, I don't think the point of the movie or even what we are saying is that people start going and standing up and dying. That's not the point.
Absolutely.
The point is that even if by watching
you get sensitized.
Manjunath, you get sensitized to the fact that there is a way of living as well. Or you can make just 10% changes to your life.
Or else at least, maybe put in a very, I won't say in a cynical way, at least you get to see, you get to, after listening to the story, you get to know how to draw a line between what is idealistic and what is a real life ideals. Do you think that it can serve the purpose?
Yeah, I think so. See, maybe people after watching the movie and hearing about Manjunath will realize, will come to the conclusion that let me walk away. Right. This just proves that there are friends of mine who tell me that this just proves that things don't work.
Yeah.
One of the ways of thinking about Manjunath was that you can stand up for the truth and die in this country and nobody will care. That is one way of thinking about it. The other way to think about it is that if you want genuine satisfaction, then you need to at least at the margin create a difference and try to make things better.
Right.
And if that means that, in your daily dealings, if you can, there's corruption everywhere. Right. Just small things. Just stop lying, for example, on small things, or just start delivering things on time. Integrity doesn't have to be fighting crime. Yeah, it has to, integrity can be doing your job well. There is a very interesting scene in the movie, and when Manjunath died, when the belongings were taken to the family, there was a copy of the Bhagavad Gita which his father had given him. Now, I'm not talking from a religious perspective here. And there were certain sections which Manjunath had underlined in the Bhagavad Gita, because he was reading it just before he had died. And one of the things which was underlined, which has been used very effectively in the movie as well, is that you are a warrior, your duty is to fight, because there is no bigger joy or achievement for a warrior than to die in battle. Now, that doesn't mean you have to die in battle. What that means is that if your duty is to do something honestly, then do that honestly.
Right. Absolutely.
That itself, if people start doing and implementing correctly as a means of being, having integrity, that itself can be a big achievement from what Manjunath taught us.
I think. So, again, coming back to this idea of a case study, if you have to think in terms of somebody doing a case study, so this case study should be remembered for what? What part of a legacy of Manjunath should it be? Should it be personality? Should it be values? Should it be ethics? Should it be morality? Or should it be how to lead a public life? Should it be how to manage the career, or just coming out of a business school like IIM LUCKNOW? So what part of it is it like?
It could be all of these, in my opinion. But most importantly, I think
the front-end part of it.
Yeah, I think there are two things. One is thinking about the human angle whenever you have a problem in front of you, which is how he thought about things.
So does it relate to, therefore, when I'm looking back, I'm talking about like other side of the story, is that when two people become very humanistic, do they become too emotional?
No, emotions and having a human angle are two different things.
Okay.
Getting emotional can blur judgment. Being humanistic does not blur judgment. if if I work for an investment bank and the bank has to do well, my people have to be happy,
Right.
and I have to take care of them. That does not mean that I'm emotional about it. The point is that even from a pure transactional perspective, a happy employee is the one who's going to deliver.
Absolutely.
From that perspective, it is not about emotions alone. It is about caring for human beings. So, just as the case study which we actually discussed in B school, if there is a technology change, for example, which you are going through in a company, the first thing you have to think is, how do people accept this? That does not change your costs and benefits. It can be only about communication as well.
Right.
But the fact that you put human beings in front of machines and technology and cost sheets and Excel sheets is what actually he taught us. Because even when he was trying to do his job, he was thinking about people in the country. He was thinking about what is the human impact of all of this. He was not trying to save. He was not trying to reduce India's fiscal deficit. What he was thinking was, what is happening here?
Right.
That the poor person is not getting the kerosene he deserves, and the diesel is actually, being adulterated, and that is tax money which is being given by people who hard-earned money. He was thinking about that human being on the other side.
Right. Who's getting affected? Yeah.
Who was getting affected. So that, I think, is something that, unfortunately in India, my experience has been that this is one thing that is not taught that well in business schools.
Okay.
There can be chapters about organizational behavior.
Absolutely.
Once you worked, you realize that the number of bullies who are management, who are your managers, and so many decisions are taken consistently. Your case studies are full of decisions which are taken with the cost in mind and not the human aspect.
Excellent.
How many mergers have we seen in the last 10 years where an acquisition happened and everyone left?
Right.
Obviously, the acquisition was made from a rupee perspective rather than what will happen because the people are the ones who run the business. And I think somewhere or the other, that human aspect of actually management, and purely from an economic perspective, I'm not saying from an emotional perspective, is what I think to a large extent was, from my perspective, what he left.
Great. I think one last question that I have is that, now maybe for the posterity, nobody knows exactly when he's going to watch this movie as well as this interview, or maybe people are going to be enamored with the legacy of this one. So, what do you think? Maybe 3 important things that people can learn from the episode of Manjunath, especially from the point of view of people who are about to graduate, getting into the careers. Because I think at some level they have to get this thing right into their heads. Say that, boss, this is it. So this is how I have to manage my career. So from that perspective, what does the entire episode of Manjunath teach them? Or they should learn from it. At least 3 most important things.
I think 3 things would be, one, just repeating what I was saying earlier. One is, I think whenever you are in a place where you are making a decision, it should not just be based on costs and Excel sheets. Decisions involve human beings, and companies are run by human beings, and that, I think, is singularly the most important.
Okay.
Secondly,
so therefore, just before we go to the second and third, do you think the institutions also, the professors also have equal responsibility there, because they're the ones who are driving the whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're talking about only Excel sheets, and then it's all about models, it's all about plans, and therefore, this is what it is like. So therefore, you think it has to be grounded to that level where they also sensitize the students or the so-called management graduates, think that, I think you also have to look at this point of view.
Yeah, I think because, what happens is ethics and organizational behavior and finance, for example, are 3 different courses done at 3 different times.
Right.
So sometimes you don't realize that these are, you're in an organization where you're doing finance and you'll have people involved. So sometimes I think, I don't know, maybe where you could have joined, the same case study looked at by all 3 courses. Sometimes it helps.
Right.
I was in an exchange program in Sweden and they would do that.
Okay.
The case study is the same. It was actually, I remember one very classic example of a company in Brazil where a plant was taken over by a Russian company and how it created a big mess. It was a finance case study, but it was really about people and how everything got messed up.
Very good.
Maybe, and I'm not saying start new courses for that. It could be just a combination of some of these.
Right.
I think that makes a big difference.
Right. And the other 2?
So that is one. The second is integrity is very, very, very important.
Okay.
And again, that does not mean picking up a sword.
Measured integrity or is it solid integrity? Measured integrity means you keep changing depending on the situation. That's what I'm saying.
See here.
That because somebody has to draw a line.
Yeah. See, that is a difficult one, and maybe that is one of the things you learn from Manjunath's case as well.
Right.
That
you be a Roman in Rome, kind of thing.
Yeah. Now,
not saying that you become a part of it, but at least you.
Yeah, don't participate.
Yeah.
And do as much as you can.
Right.
But maybe one of the things is that you have to concede defeat sometimes.
Right.
But that does not mean you don't try either.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that nothing will work and so I should join the fun is not the way to deal with this. Honesty is paramount. Obviously, you could draw a line before it starts to harm you.
Great. So I think before we go to the third one, let's look at this one just to take this logic analogy further. How do you think IOC must have looked at the whole thing? Because he died for that company. He's serving. He's trying to secure their future. I mean, secure their interests. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing that should have been done by a highest guy, maybe the CEO kind of guy, the top management. And they must have been naive to all this over the years. So, they must have given up, or maybe they've been hand-gloving with them. We have no idea what it is. But the issue is that, how do you think a company must have taken the whole thing?
See, my experience has shown that nothing has happened.
Right.
And I'm not saying IOC, this is actually a government problem, right? Because these are all government-run organizations, whether it's ONGC, IOC, all the others, right? Nobody owns it, right? The problem is that people go to the other extreme where they say that if everyone's making money off this, why not me too?
Okay.
Now, is it the case at IOC? I don't know, I have not worked there.
Right.
But visibly speaking, has adulteration reduced in this country? My gut feel is not.
No.
If anything, it's got worse. But I don't know that either. Do they talk about Manjunath actively apart from just after the event? I have not seen anything of that sort. They declared some award for some honesty and all that, but I don't know what happened after that.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, that's all. As in, I could have put a blog on my website and it could have had the same effect. Is IOC today, IOC or for that matter, the government has the core issue of subsidy, which is actually on kerosene, which is actually leading to this problem. There is, the Aadhaar scheme is supposed to sort out this, right, through direct cash transfers. Now, where that is, has that got affected because of Manjunath's case? I don't think.
Absolutely.
There was one mention in Parliament about Manjunath's case, which because it was an answer to a question, and then nothing happened. Unfortunately, I don't think anything has happened since. Is there, by the way, something going on which will sort out the problem? Yes, there is something.
So that actually compels me to ask one more interesting thing. From me, it's interesting because, I mean, why is that even a death is not able to sensitize people? I think last thing that somebody can sacrifice is somebody's life. And in this case, your own batchmate, a guy with whom you spent 2 years of life, he has sacrificed his life for fighting for values, fighting for his companies, fighting for securing the interest of this company. And then at the end of it, you still see that the guys who are supposed to own it, they're not owning it.
If you go to Google right now, and you put a search saying officers on duty less than 30 years old died in India, you will get at least 300 cases. Satyendra Dubey and Manjunath are two of the most high-profile ones, and only because their batchmates, people like us, are pushing. There are many other poorer people and RTI activists who have died, and 39, I think, was 39 RTI activists died only in Maharashtra in last year.
Right.
I can't recollect even one name. What happens is that this has become a statistic, just like any other thing in India. Human life is almost not. People have become insensitive to terrorist attacks. This was finally a softer issue. The deaths in this country have stopped shaking people up. They think that this is how the system is, and they play along. I think also what has happened is that at the absolute bottom level, people are so busy trying to survive that they really can't. They don't have time to.
They don't even forget about the physical space. They don't even give the mental space to.
Yeah, the mental. Actually, that's a very valid point. They don't have space for putting in something like this. Right. They're just trying to go through their next meal, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. And then you have the middle class which is struggling, and if you have a guy in Bombay who's traveling 2 hours to work and then working 12 hours and then coming back in the rain, where is time for Manjunath?
Right.
So we hope that our efforts will keep it alive, and someday people start realizing these things. But and maybe the other way to think about it is that the optimistic way to look at it is that the Anna Hazare movement and all this, whatever happened in 2012 to 14 was all a culmination of a combination of these things. So maybe there is a silver lining in this, but as of right now, it doesn't.
Right.
Unfortunately,
the last one, the last learning that people must have from this episode.
So I lost my train of thought. So I had thought of 3 things. I think the third thing is that, and that is less related to so much, not so much on Manjunath himself, but otherwise is that what I realized personally, this is my personal takeaway, is that when you see something and you want to say something, then you should stand up and do it.
No matter what the consequences.
No. Consequences have to be kept in mind. Your responsibility. Finally, you are not alone in this world. You affect many people.
Right.
One way of thinking about it is that if I die, then what happens to my family? That is also my responsibility.
Right.
But more importantly, you have to contribute. Otherwise you will not get satisfaction. And this is something I have learned more than anything else. See, Manjunath was standing up for something because he internally would never have forgiven himself if he had not done it.
That's his value system.
That was his value system. Now, he was willing to die for it. I am not. I am being pragmatic, practical, or coward, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But the point is that, however,
your value system is different, and that's fair enough.
But you still have to stand up for some values. You have somewhere your beliefs have to come.
Right.
And what I mean to say is that
it may not be very extreme.
It may not be as extreme. For example, Manjunath died. There was a set of people in our batch who thought that they had to do something about it, so left their jobs, took sabbaticals, went and fought the case. There were others who gave money, saying, let me put money and let this movie get released. There were others who said that I will not sleep for 3-4 months till the time this movie is released, and I will ensure that everyone hears the story. Now, at some stage, you have to draw the line and say, this I am willing to do. See, donating some money is not going to make you lose your life. Or,
taking away 3 months or 4 months.
3 months, 4 months leave for some people is not possible, but for many others, if you really think about it, when you are 50 years old and you look back at this incident and you say, I could not spare 3 months for my friend. What is the value of, between November when we started promoting the movie and May, and now we are in July. Why can't, you have written a blog in every newspaper, for example, written to everyone, you called everyone you could have thought of and said, can you publish something for me? These are things that that people have to do.
Right.
You draw your line, whatever is acceptable, but do something.
Right.
Because he was willing to do so much, so we can do at least something for him.
Right.
And there is a scene in the movie which actually shook me very, very strongly, and I don't know whether it is true also or not. But this is Sandeep has maybe it's his imagination, but I'm sure Manjunath would have said it. So what happens is that Manjunath is confronted by his antagonist, by the villain who kills him, and Manjunath says, now you will suffer because you don't know what.
When the good people get suffered.
Yeah, so he said, you don't know what my batchmates can do. You don't know where they're sitting,
right?
And you know what they can do and what influence they have in society. And that guy says that nothing is going to happen. They will come, give interviews on television, and then disappear, move on with their life, and do deals and get busy with their next foreign trips. Nobody is going to remember you. That I thought was very powerful because something you have to do. And so if you believe in something, then stand up. Don't die for it, but at least stand up and be heard.
Right.
That I think is something that he has taught us. You look at the lawyer I.B. Singh,
right,
who did not charge anything for this. Spent 18 months of his life traveling up and down from Kanpur. Sorry, I don't remember the city, but traveling up and down for every hearing. Look at Sandeep Verma. He's given 4 years of his life.
Sacrificing his personal.
Sacrificing for someone they do not even know. We can do it. See, today, whether we make money off this or not, whether we will, whether something comes out of it or not, at least tomorrow, some 5 years from now, I can look back at this episode and say, I did my best. If things worked great, if they did not also, okay, at least I will not blame myself.
Yeah, no regrets whatsoever.
I have some regrets, but maybe Sandeep will not have any regret on that.
Yeah, right.
That I did my best to try and bring the story out.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we really hope that the posterity, especially the business school generation, will have very strong takeaways from the episode of Manjunath, and really pray that this legacy of what he has started, not only Manjunath's legacy, but also legacy of spreading this great goodness, I think is going to spread in a great deal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.